navigating a tumultuous love. I moved in with my girlfriend, supporting her and her kids through family crises. Despite our strong bond, depression and jealousy erupted. After discovering texts and feeling disrespected, I broke up with her. Was I truly to blame? This may be a lengthy post. I'm going to attempt to shorten it as much as I can. I do not wish to discuss this any further with my friends or family because they are biased and take my side. I am seeking honest answers and accountability, or to know if I am being manipulated or if I am the one at fault. I will be pursuing therapy soon and want to improve myself. In 2021, I moved to the Pacific Northwest and met my significant other on a dating application. It was intended to be just a casual encounter, but it quickly developed into something more. She has 2 young children, and I quickly fell in love with them. I felt like I was part of a family and assumed the role of bonus mom. My significant other comes from a dysfunctional family that, despite its issues, possesses financial resources. Her grandmother purchased a small house for her after she separated from her children's father. Her mother covered the lot rent, while my significant other was attempting to complete online courses to become a teacher. I moved in and took over the payment of the lot rent, supporting her until she graduated and began her career. Not long after, my father was near death due to a mysterious lung infection, while her father was battling cancer. This situation became very serious. It was traumatic for both of us. My father survived, but her father's cancer worsened. Throughout this ordeal, we grew closer, and she secured a job at a school while continuing to work towards her degree. We carried on with our lives and became engaged the following year. We had an unofficial wedding in her grandparents' living room so her dying father could witness it. I was upset that my family was not invited, but understood that her father was sick and self-conscious, so I went along with it for her. He passed away shortly afterward. She stopped attending college classes to care for her grandparents, with whom her father had been living. Her father was a drug addict and a hoarder. We cleaned out his room, and during this time, my significant other discovered disturbing items related to her father. She experienced sadness, anger, resentment, and struggled to process her emotions. I should have encouraged her to seek therapy. Instead, I took care of the children, cooked, cleaned, and paid the bills while she remained in bed, depressed for most of the day. I tried to be there for her emotionally, but I may have caused more harm than good. She began to direct all her frustrations toward me, constantly lashing out. I became reactive and retaliated. After one particularly awful fight, I felt hopeless and exhausted from the arguing, so I downloaded Tinder. I didn't create an account. I threw my phone and cried. Months later, we took the children to Disneyland for Christmas, and it was a terrible experience. Her best male friend of 13 years, the one who officiated our living room wedding, flew back with us. I started feeling jealous of how kindly she treated him and wished she would treat me the same way. Resentment bubbled up and was evident on my face, making matters worse. In 2024, my significant other is still trying to obtain her degree while battling depression. She cuts financial ties with her mother. The outbursts decrease, and I remain supportive. We acknowledge that we love each other, but that we met at an inopportune time, and take our therapist's advice to live in separate homes and date each other again. My significant other informs me that her best male friend is moving up here and will be living with her until he finds his own place. She wants to sell her house due to the mold issue and get an apartment. She expresses her desire for me to get an apartment with her and start fresh. While I am in the process of moving out, she goes through my phone and discovers the Tinder text code. I admit what happened. She is understandably hurt and furious. I find my own apartment close to my job, feeling downcast. My significant other becomes roommates with her best male friend, and they find a place together along with a dog. Neither has good credit, so she puts a significant amount of money down for the apartment. He is launching a manifestation business, and she lends him money for it. My significant other becomes ill and learns she has mold poisoning, resulting in weight loss, vomiting, and contributing to her emotional dysregulation. I try to take her to her medical appointments, but her best male friend takes her instead. I attempt to visit her, but she states she cannot be around me. I begin to withdraw. Later, my significant other expresses a desire to work on our relationship and visits my apartment. However, arguments still occur. I start to notice that her best male friend is buying her gifts, taking her out, and ultimately replacing my role. My significant other accuses me of being jealous and insecure. They have been living together for 10 months now. As of last month, my significant other and I have been spending time together and wanting to resolve our issues. I have been visiting and preparing dinner for the children so she can finally complete her degree. 3 days ago, my significant other mentioned that her best male friend has written 5 pages on his computer expressing his love for her. This is the man who officiated our wedding. I feel disrespected as I have been visiting their home and having dinner with them. He teaches classes on manifestation and meditation, and I perceive him as inauthentic. Last night, I was looking forward to taking my significant other to a comedy show. During the drive, I mentioned how my sister recently traveled across the country simply because she wanted to. My significant other was triggered and responded, "You and I are in different worlds. It must be nice to go somewhere because you can. You have never struggled. You haven't experienced anything. You have always had your parents to support you," which is not true. She insisted that I take her home and proceeded to say that I have done nothing in the last 10 months to improve our relationship, was not there for her during her illness, and blamed me for entering her life, selling her house, delaying her graduation, and other issues. She desires a partner who is fully committed. What does that mean? I cannot simply move back in. I am trying to visit and address our issues. Fully committed as in me giving her money since the argument was sparked by financial concerns. She is deeply insecure about her struggles and asserts that she can tell I am no longer in love with her. She was screaming and crying in the car. I dropped her off, and she later apologized via text, stating that she just needed time alone and expressed her love for me, but admitted she trusts no one, especially after learning about her best male friend. I am sure they will continue living together. This is a woman who cannot seem to catch a break and has been hurt repeatedly. However, she also lacks accountability and displays a sense of entitlement. Her problems always seem to overshadow mine, which I feel are rarely considered. I am uncertain whether a relationship can recover from such circumstances. I need to let go. I did break up with her, but amid this entire chaotic situation, was I as much in the wrong as she claims? I feel like a terrible person. I apologize for the length of this post. I needed to illustrate this situation and what we have both experienced. Story 2. I, 26F, thought I found the one, but he, 25M, realized he's Eros. How do I move on? I had been seeing my boyfriend, S, for 2 months. I knew him through my best friend, as they had both been working for the same employer for about a year. I had seen him on her social media a few times and thought he was very attractive, but I never mentioned him to my friend until she was about to resign. It took a lot for me to do this because I do not typically approach men. After a few days, he finally messaged me on Instagram and we began talking. He is a wonderful person. He has a green thumb. When we went on our first date, I immediately connected with him on a deeper level. He was an excellent communicator, possessed high emotional intelligence, and was very eager to learn about me, my life, family, interests, and so forth. We both hit it off and began conversing regularly every day. A bit of context about S. He has never dated anyone before. This is his first relationship. S is an amazing individual. He is a very thoughtful and kind-hearted person. He always treated me with respect and made an effort to make me feel special and loved. He consistently planned our dates at locations that were convenient for me and always drove me home afterward. He paid for all of our dates early in our relationship, and he always asked for consent before engaging in any physical affection with me. Early in our dating phase, I was open with him about my struggles with my family and how dating is not acceptable in my household. I made it clear that if this was something he did not want to pursue, we could always stop dating and remain friends. We both expressed that we genuinely liked each other and enjoyed each other's company. He conveyed that he envisions a future with me, so he was more than willing to navigate this situation together. This really meant a lot to me because my family is quite controlling, and his assurance that he would stand by my side confirmed that he sees a future with me. A few weeks before Valentine's Day, he took a step forward and asked me to be his girlfriend. I was overjoyed and excited, and of course, I said yes. At that point, we had not engaged in any physical intimacy at all, aside from hugging. We had discussed intimacy before, and we had addressed how comfortable we are with various levels of intimacy. Although I had never been intimate with anyone, I had experienced my first kiss previously. S is very inexperienced in this area and has not had any intimate experiences with anyone. He told me he is ready whenever I am and that he will always ask for consent before doing anything. A few days before Valentine's Day, we shared our first kiss. It was somewhat awkward at first, but once we both got the hang of it, we began to enjoy it more. We then planned to spend the weekend together since it was Valentine's Day weekend. On Saturday, I met him for our date, and he walked me to his car. When we arrived, he surprised me with roses for Valentine's Day and leaned in for a kiss. We had a lovely dinner, and I kissed him a couple of times, always asking for permission first, because we were still new to this, which he understood. After returning to his place and settling in, we began to kiss more. The issue was that I always had to initiate any form of intimacy because S said he would not take the lead. I initially thought it was because he is quite shy, which is why he might not initiate or ask. However, he is quite passionate when we kiss, and we both have a wonderful time together. We watched a movie, I had a little too much to drink, and we ended up just sleeping that night. The following day, we had a few hours together before S had to meet his friends for dinner. After lunch, I expressed to him that I wanted to make out, and we did. We talked about how we like to be kissed and how he enjoys holding me while we kiss. He is a fantastic kisser, by the way, and whenever we kiss, he does not hesitate to show his affection. Soon after, we began discussing our desire to be intimate with one another, and we both agreed to take that step. We talked about how our experience might not be the best since it was our first time, but we were okay with it not being perfect, as it is often depicted in movies. When we reached the bedroom, it was initially a bit awkward, but we eventually became intimate. It was not smooth sailing, as we were both very nervous. When S was ready, I became quite tense, which made penetration difficult. Instead, we explored other things, and S eventually reached climax. Afterward, we cuddled for a while and talked about our experience. He apologized multiple times because he could not maintain his erection for long, and we had to try several times. I also apologized for not being ready when he was. We both acknowledged that the first time would not be perfect, but it was fine as long as we both enjoyed it together. Things began to take a downturn afterward. I noticed that S was unusually quiet. He is generally a reserved person, but he seemed preoccupied with his thoughts. I dismissed it, thinking he was probably worried about being late to meet his friends. During our car ride home, he opened up to me about how he has always believed he may be asexual, and after our intimate experience that day, he is quite certain of it. He mentioned that since he had difficulty maintaining an erection for long, he might be asexual. We had previously discussed how I am sexually driven and how my love language is physical affection and touch. S expressed concern that he would not be able to meet my needs and expectations in this relationship because of this. I found this overwhelming because I thought we were both struggling with intimacy. After all, we were both anxious about the entire experience. I also noticed that he kept apologizing for not looking or presenting himself a certain way while we were intimate. I believed that we were both nervous about this situation. I had some understanding of asexuality, but not enough, so I told him I would need to do some research into it before responding to his concerns. However, after some time, I sensed increasing uncertainty from S. I began to cry because I feared he was breaking up with me. He was not, and he assured me that he needed some time to discuss this with his friends or sister to figure it out. I reassured him and stated that I would give him the space he needed to sort through this. At the same time, I mentioned that I was ready to compromise and accommodate this in other ways, and that sex is not everything in a relationship. He was very understanding and even became emotional after this. So we both said our goodbyes. Story 3. My online best friend is a psychopath, and I finally gave her a taste of her own medicine. Okay, so I do not know how to organize this all. I have a best friend, we will call her Sam, who is 20 years old, and we have known each other for 10 years to be precise. For a significant amount of time, our friendship was long distance. We initially met on Instagram through mutual friends, and I attempted to meet up with her twice a year. I was in Tallahassee and she was in Jacksonville. Each time, we would make plans to see each other with approval from both of our parents. However, on the day we were supposed to meet, I would travel to her city only for her to cancel, claiming she was too nervous. This pattern persisted for years. No, she was not a catfish. We would video call and everything, but there was definitely something off about her behavior. We had met as children, and I saw her for the first time when I was 18. I took the initiative to drive an hour just to see her during her 30-minute break at work, and she agreed to it. However, she seemed unusually quiet and just off, which was unlike Sam, as we would talk every day, and she usually had a loud and eccentric personality. I dismissed her behavior as mere nervousness, but it clearly went beyond that. Our friendship evolved into me being her emotional support, and I frequently found myself convincing her not to harm herself. Over time, I felt a sense of responsibility to remain her friend, even though she became increasingly angry, verbally abusive, and prone to screaming and cursing at people without reason. I stayed because I saw her as someone who was in pain and needed a friend. I did not want to be like the other people who left her because she was a burden. There were numerous instances when she would act strangely and angrily, and she lied about various aspects of her life, including her home, family, and age, often about trivial things that did not matter. It became evident that she was presenting herself as someone she aspired to be. Every time I saw her in real life, she was entirely different from her online persona. Fast forward to December 2024. She was unemployed and living at her mother's house, so I wanted her to have a good Christmas and invited her to stay at my home for a week to celebrate together. I prepared a complete feast and bought her presents, setting up a small tree since my husband was out of town and my special needs brother, who is 23 but has the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, was staying with me. I thought it would be a wonderful getaway for her, especially since they always got along like siblings. I half expected her to decline, as she usually did. I sent her a text message before work that read, "Hey, if you want to and are comfortable, I am having a mini pre-Christmas with my brother. I can pick you up, and you can stay over for a week for a little getaway, no pressure if you do not want to." When I checked my phone less than an hour later, she responded in all capital letters, excitedly saying she really wanted to come and spamming my phone with messages. Fast forward again, I drove 2.5 hours to pick her up and took her to my home. Immediately, she was acting strangely around my brother, sitting very close to him, and when I was at work, she would ignore me, claiming she was hanging out with my brother. The odd part was that when I returned home, she would whisper that he was weird and making mean comments about him, while my brother excitedly told me he thought he had a crush on Sam and that she might actually like him. The entire situation felt bizarre. I noticed that my friend was flirting with my brother while disguising it by making rude comments about him. Later, I discovered that she was essentially grooming him, coercing him into performing sexual favors in exchange for the pretense of having a secret relationship, and instructing him not to tell me, because I would get mad at him. One night, I returned home from work to find him passed out drunk, while Sam sat on the couch next to him, coloring. She had forced him to consume a 1.75-liter bottle of whiskey while I was away, and every time I checked on him, she screamed at me to leave him alone. I was furious because she had told me he had initiated the drinking and that she did not realize what had happened until he fell asleep. The following morning, I had my mother purchase a plane ticket to take him home and explained everything while taking her home. I did not even want to confront her. I simply wanted her gone. I do not know whether she did anything to my brother while he was intoxicated or why she acted that way. I later spoke to my brother, and he mentioned that she kept giving him juice and encouraging him to drink it, and he could not recall what had happened that night. She was refusing to take responsibility for any of her actions. I was unaware of the secret relationship and her actions until after everything unfolded, so I initially believed my brother was simply afraid of getting in trouble and blaming it all on Sam. He still refuses to share details, no matter how much I press him. Anyway, we did not communicate for 3 to 4 days while I was investigating what had occurred and did not feel like talking to her. She messaged me, claiming she could not stop drinking and that it was my fault she was spiraling into a bad place. She expressed hatred toward me among other things. I left her on read, focused on being there for my brother, and dealt with the overwhelming emotions from that entire week. I was a mess for a long time. Now it is March, and I discovered that my Spotify account was still logged into her family's 10-year-old account, so I changed the email and password and closed her account. Her music meant everything to her, and I know she will be devastated and angry when she realizes what happened. Yes, it was done out of spite and likely cruel. However, I feel it is insignificant compared to what she did to my family. I feel guilty for my actions, but I cannot bring myself to undo it because she left my family permanently scarred, and I believe it is nothing compared to the harm she caused. Was that too much? I feel I did not conduct myself as the bigger person in this situation, but I felt that some form of karma needed to occur. I just wanted to vent because I feel as though I descended to her level, and I am not much better. Yet it feels somewhat satisfying that she received a taste of the consequences for her actions. Story 4. Caught off guard by my ex's baby news, I spiraled into old memories and found a heartfelt letter I once wrote him. It reminded me of my past pain, but also of the incredible love I now share with my amazing partner. Is closure truly just a letter away? My former partner of 4 years recently revealed that he and his new girlfriend are expecting a baby. Since we separated a couple of years ago, I have been in a happy relationship, as I was ready for a new commitment while he was not. Regardless, this news has stirred up many old emotions. I descended into an emotional turmoil and found a piece I had written about him when we ended our relationship, which I ultimately gave to him. It appeared that it did not resonate with him, and I do not feel that I ever received adequate recognition for what I wrote and would greatly appreciate hearing your opinions. Please understand that these feelings do not reflect how I feel about my current partner. I am extremely happy with my partner since everything happens for a purpose. I simply wanted to share something I have never disclosed to anyone else. What are your thoughts? Torn apart by the past, I am left with broken shards and a haunting, fragmented heart. This felt like a conclusion. It was vacant and cold, leaving nothing more to offer. However, something unexpected entered my life of sorrow when I least anticipated it, touching a different part of me. Although my understanding of love was tied to pain and betrayal, the flutter in my heart indicated that this was something different. This feeling was vague and uncommon. I tried to dismiss it, but somehow I couldn't. I pondered whether this truly was the end, while instead I reconsidered it as a new beginning and a chance for growth. I explored this fresh sensation, we lowered our defenses, and relief washed over us as we understood that this feeling need not be feared. We allowed things to unfold naturally, and this feeling blossomed into something unimaginable. His eyes revealed the stars more clearly than a night sky over the countryside, their shade of blue softer than a crisp autumn day. A booming laughter perfectly matched a smile that showcased his perfectly pointed teeth, a smile that crinkled his eyes and radiated from his soul. His voice was incredibly soothing, causing my heart to cease racing from the thoughts that consumed me and compelling me to pay attention to how he spoke and how his words flowed so effortlessly. He had a gentle touch that sent shivers along my spine, yet his grip was strong despite his calloused hands, and the firm hold he had on my body conveyed enough about his desire for me. Holding his body felt like home. Its warmth comforted me, and there was no one else I would rather embrace. A body with skin so delicate that when I kissed his shoulders, I lightly trailed along his back. His lips were perfectly formed, full of passion and promise. Each warm kiss he placed on my skin lingered for moments, leading me into a sensual state of intoxication, the spark that ignited within my bones. I could spend my entire life absorbed by him, wanting to discover the deepest parts of him, including his mind and soul. However, enough about his appearance, I thought. I frequently found myself lost in a trance, captivated by his charm. My daydreams about him extended beyond his physical attributes. I fell for him because he was kind and gentle. His innocent eyes drew me in, but his genuine and sweet nature became my weakness. He listened to understand rather than merely respond, remembering what I said. He went out of his way to engage with me and spend time together. Not only did he tell me, but he demonstrated how much value I held not just to him, but to the world at large. How a man treats his mother reflects significantly on how he will treat his partner, and the respect he exhibited towards her provided reassurance. He possessed a playful side that kept my spirit alive, and his flirtatious nature excited me. His teasing thrilled me, and I felt confident knowing I was the one who made him tick. The trust I developed for this man grew faster than I could manage, and it frightened me. Yet, the support and guidance he provided in my life proved that I had no reason to be concerned about opening up to him. I could trust him with not just my deepest secrets, fears, and worries, but also my hopes, dreams, ideas, and my fragile heart. He made me feel beautiful and valued something no one had done for me before. How could I not fall for someone who made me feel this way? Each morning, I awoke fixated on the last thing I had learned about him, yet distracted by my imagination of our next steps together. He made me look forward to the future awaiting me, a future I hoped would encompass him. As I write and reflect on my initial thoughts and emotions about him, comparing them to the present moment, I realize that I had no clue. I was unaware of how much stronger my desire to be with him would become. Even when I thought I understood him, I found myself becoming more vulnerable each time I saw or spoke to him. This realization made me uneasy. I had no idea I would fall so quickly, so what if I got hurt just as easily? I felt hopelessly desperate for him. I craved him, and nothing else. I was convinced that this was not a detrimental thing. He represents the calm in my life, bringing forth another aspect of me that I never knew existed, a part I do not wish to relinquish now. He encourages me to be patient, perhaps not through words, but by demonstrating where remaining calm can lead you. He brings me to a new level of relaxation, and simply gazing into his eyes seems to slow time. The world feels paused when we are intertwined. The comfort found in his gaze awakens the butterflies in my stomach. I cannot contain my joy with him, leading me to shed tears full of contentment. I possess my sun, my moon and stars, my person, in my embrace. This man has taught me how to love. I do not recall the moment I realized I loved him. I cannot even pinpoint the specific things I love most about him. However, I understand what I felt. What deepened each day was my love for him and his love for me, too. Story 5. Am I overreacting about my roommate, F21, letting her cat pee everywhere, never cleaning, stealing from me, and turning people against me? I am a 21-year-old female and have been living with my roommate, who is also a 21-year-old female, for a while now. She and her friends believe that I have been overreacting to the whole situation and have treated me poorly, as if I were insane because of it. She owns a cat that urinates all over the place, on the floor, on furniture, and even in the kitchen. Rather than cleaning it up, she simply throws a paper towel on top of it and leaves it there for days. The odor is terrible, and it persists regardless of how much I clean. For most of the time, I find myself being the one who cleans up after the cat, as she would leave the mess on our floor for days or cover it with a paper towel and hide it under bins when guests arrived. She also has a habit of leaving her clothes scattered on the bathroom floor to the extent that her cat would urinate on them. Instead of cleaning them, she would put all the soiled clothes in the bathtub to hide them when people came over. Additionally, I feel as though I am responsible for almost all of the household chores. I have been washing most of the dishes, including hers, just to keep the kitchen usable. The one time I asked her for assistance after doing her dishes for weeks, she stated she would only wash her own and left the rest for me, despite my having already cleaned most of hers and expressing that I was struggling and needed extra help. In general, she simply makes a mess of the house. There are clothes, trash, and food wrappers everywhere, and it is embarrassing. I feel like I cannot even invite people over because the place always smells like cat urine and is consistently cluttered with her belongings. We also had a fruit fly problem for a while. Furthermore, there is the issue of her taking my things. I have caught her eating my food multiple times, and whenever I mention it, she responds by saying she bought the same item while my food conveniently disappears, which feels like gaslighting. The most frustrating instance was when my vape went missing, and suddenly, she had the exact same one. When I saw her using it, she immediately became defensive and claimed she purchased the same exact one, even though I had previously lost it in her room after a night out, and instead of returning it, she kept it and lied. Thankfully, I no longer vape, so that is a positive. But that is beside the point. What significantly worsened the situation was when she began to turn her friends against me. Individuals who used to be friendly with me suddenly started ignoring me. I later learned that she had been telling them, and even her family, that I was the one making the house filthy, which is absurd considering how much I clean up after her. Now, I feel as though I am being portrayed as the problem when all I wanted was a livable space. When her sister was visiting, they would make snide comments in my presence about trivial matters, such as a pan I had left on the stove, even though I was meal prepping and had to stop midway to eat because my blood sugar had dropped. I intended to clean it up afterward. They essentially wagered how long it would remain there, continuing the narrative that I was the issue in the house. Additionally, I noticed that a friend of hers, with whom I usually get along, made a sarcastic comment about a haircut I recently received. My bangs were cut far too short, and jokingly suggested that I should cut them even shorter, laughing in my face. They now also ignore me when I try to greet them and disregard my friends when they attempt to say hello. My roommate also told her friend that she was tired of babysitting me and already did enough of that at work, despite the fact that I literally clean everything at home. She even decided to invite her ex-boyfriend to stay for 7 days, even though we had agreed not to allow him in the house because he always breaks items, eats my food, leaves our door wide open, lets the cat out, and consistently disrespects our home during his stays. Previously, I was much more tolerant and tried to discuss these issues with her, but I was met with complete deflection or remarks about things I do, which is not an effective way of communicating. She never truly listened to my concerns. I have reached a point where I am completely overwhelmed and have lashed out at her multiple times due to everything she has done over the past month, but she and her friends have portrayed me as overreacting and have made me uncomfortable in my own home. I have unfollowed her on all social media platforms and have lost all patience for her. However, am I overreacting by potentially ruining our friendship over this?